This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998 and Ash. In the years to come, A's speech in Accumula Town will be remembered as the start of an event known as the Plasma War, a pivotal and highly turbulent period in universe history. However, this fact is unknowable to the navy-haired young man currently watching a rerun of the King's declaration of war from a Pokemon Center in Castelia City. Similarly, this boy has no concept that his role in the war to come will be just as important as A's, though he does know one thing, that he despises the King with his whole heart. Team Plasma are nothing but a group of thieves who dress up their villainy as liberation, but he knows the truth. There was nothing liberating in the way they stole his little sister's purloin. Strolling up to the counter, this new hero reclaims his Pokemon, clipping their balls to his belt as he thanks Nurse Joy, then turns to leave. With the insect badge now in his possession, his next stop is Nakarine City, though all thoughts of gyms are thrust from his mind when he hears a trainer loudly telling his friends that this Lord A guy is a real hero. Everyone's against him, but he's still trying to make a better world for Pokemon, so maybe he ought to be the one running Unova after all. From the half-hearted murmurs the trainer receives, it is clear that his friends are at best ambivalent to the idea, though one person who most certainly is not is the navy-haired hero, who asks if the trainer really believes that, his tone almost casual, if not for the burning fury in those red eyes of his. A little startled by the interruption, the trainer stammers that, yeah, he believes it. That's why he said it. Though still conversational, the blue-haired boy asks if he would be willing to back his words with his Pokemon then, since in his experience, the truth can often be found in the heat of battle. Since he believes A is a vile, disingenuous piece of scum, it seems only proper they test their differing opinions on the battlefield to see which is right. Smirking that this kid's talking crazy, one of the trainer's friends asks just who he thinks he is barging in on their conversation, with this being where the blue-haired boy's calm facade slips just a little, to show a touch more of the passion burning underneath, as he answers that he's Hugh, the one who's gonna destroy Team Plasma. Rising to his feet, the trainer who had initially shown support for the team replies that in that case, he will battle Hugh. This is what Lord A would do in this situation, with the pair agreeing to meet outside. As the two trainers take their places on either side of the Pokemon Center battlefield, the pro-Plasma participant warns Hugh that he should be careful, as he's already gotten half his badges, though this doesn't worry the navy-haired youth one bit, as he calls forth his partner Samurott, with the other trainer grinning that it looks like truth will favor him, as he chooses his best buddy Simisage. Still exuding that aura of menacing mania, Hugh instructs the Simisage trainer to go first if he's so sure, causing some of the hangers-on to wonder if Quillfish Head's trying to lose on purpose. Shrugging that it's Hugh's funeral, the other boy then commands the grassy monkey to make it quick with a seed bomb, seeing a large natural projectile be fired right at Samurott. Though smirking slightly now, Hugh simply tells his partner to use Mega Horn. At once, Samurott is charging, demonstrating a speed that belies its bulky frame, with running headlong at the seed bomb. Then, with a single unerring thrust, it splits the projectile in two, causing the halves to detonate harmlessly on either side of the water type. However, this is not the end, as maintaining its pace, Samurott then barrels right into Simisage, striking with the same Mega Horn and sending it crashing into the garden where it lies with spirals for eyes. Noting his appreciation to his starter, Hugh returns it to its ball, then in that same placid tone from the beginning of their encounter, tells his foe that it seems his way is true, with this being all he says as he turns his back and begins heading east towards Sky Arrow Bridge. In that moment, there is nothing to suggest the brutality of his recent actions, nothing but the fire still blazing in his eyes, that is. Returning to A, he is mid-flight, since as expected the Jennies had come to bust up the rally in Accumula Town not long after the boys' declaration of war. As a result, getting the King to safety had been the highest priority, with A and a few grunts being loaded into one of the unmarked vehicles, as his father had instructed him not to be afraid, and to hold tight to his fervor, as it is only through the pursuit of such that he can become the hero of ideals that Unova needs. Thankfully, A had known exactly what this had meant, as if he is to follow the path he laid out in his speech, he must continue defeating the champions of the status quo, which at this point means the gym leaders. Speaking of gyms, A assumes they'll be returning to the Striaton one to lie low, though when he questions the driver on this, he's informed that thanks to A's decree around its closure, Team Plasma have been forced to evacuate, so they will be traveling to the next closest safe house, which is just outside Nakarine City. Worriedly, young King questions what this means for his sisters and Colress, as they were all back at the gym, though dutifully, the driver explains that Lady Anthea and Lady Concordia will be returned to A's castle where they can rest safely for however long they continue to slumber, and as for Dr. Colress, he's afraid he doesn't know where he is, though if it will put the monarch's mind at ease, he will ask around when they get to base. Thanking the man for his help, A then settles in for the long drive ahead, with much of it passing in silence as the boy either contemplates, sleeps, or makes idle small talk with his guards, as there is very little else he can do, to the point where he is almost reminded of the journey from Iceris under Looker's tender care. However, this all changes when Nacrene City comes into view, as Ace suddenly feels a strange pulsing in the back of his skull, which only grows stronger the closer the car gets to its destination. Seeing his lord is in some kind of distress, the driver asks if A is okay, with this being just what the boy needs, as by having the pulsing drowned out, he realizes that it is actually someone with a deep rumbling voice speaking just at the end of his audible range. Instructing the driver to be quiet, A focuses on listening to what the voice has to say, with it slowly becoming clear that it is the same two words spoken over and over again.
Find me.
Not sure who this might be, or for what purpose, A responds to the voice, asking where he's meant to find them, though his answer does not come in words, but rather a lurching at the back of his stomach that points in the direction of the city. By now the turn-off to the safe house is rapidly approaching, though needing to know the answer to this mystery, A commands the chauffeur to keep going and follow his heading, an order which as expected is dutifully carried out, seeing the car pass into the city proper. Each time A feels the direction pulling him change, he relays it, resulting in them pulling up outside the Nacrene Museum of all places. And while his grunt escort offer to join him inside, the young king refuses, ordering them to stay by the car, as he feels that this is something he must do alone. The sole exception to this, of course, is Baniri, who as ever rides on A's shoulder as he makes his way into the museum, following the tug behind his navel as it guides him to a small display case containing a shiny black orb, which is labelled the Dark Stone. Only now does the thrumming stop, and as A instinctively reaches out to unlatch the case and take its contents, a motherly voice states that she wouldn't recommend doing that if she was him, since it'll trigger an alarm right to the police station, meaning Officer Jenny would be here in minutes. Turning around to face the speaker, A begins to protest that the stone was summoning him, so he must be allowed to discover why, though when he comes fully into view, the friendly face of the woman stiffens, as she mildly states that he's A, the boy from the news. Nodding, A once more demands that she deactivate the security system so he may examine the stone. Though lips pursed, the woman instead suggests they battle for it, stating that if he really plans to face Alda, he'll have to battle her anyway, as she is Lenora, the Nacrene City gym leader. Crossing his arms somewhat defensively considering his experience with Bryson, A questions why she would willingly give him something he needs if she is one of the League oppressors. Though looking him straight in the eye without fear or guile, Lenora answers in exchange for her emptying the stone, A must promise to surrender himself to the police if he loses. Simply put, he is a danger to all of Unova, and this way his arrest will not be able to play into his martyrdom narrative, as he will have accepted it of his own free will, hopefully bringing an end to the schism forming in the region regarding so-called liberation. Eyeing her up coolly, A nods that he accepts these terms, stating that she's not a posturing liar like Bryson, so strange as it is, he believes that she will hand over both her badge and the Darkstone once he is victorious. Nodding as well, Lenora then punches in a code on a keypad beside the display case, causing it to spring open as she retrieves the orb, telling the boy to follow her as the gym is in the basement. Wordlessly, the pair then descend several flights of stairs, arriving in a mostly empty chamber save for the regulation battlefield which A takes his place at one end of, while Lenora does likewise, though not before laying both the Darkstone and a basic badge on a side table, claiming that whichever one of them proves victorious in a 2v2 will walk away with both, while the loser will stay down here. Having come too far to back down now, A starts things off by bringing out Rufflet, hoping he can win him this badge just as it did the trio badge, while in turn Lenora chooses her Watchog. At once A feels his temperature rising, as he is reminded of the enslaved and brainwashed Watchog he saw back at the police station, with this possibly being what Lenora had planned. As seeing the young king hesitate, she orders a Thunderbolt. At once, lightning shoots from the lookout Pokemon's tail, catching the eaglet head-on and grounding it temporarily. However, this is just what the gym leader had been waiting for, as with the flash of its multicolored eyes, Watchog strikes Rufflet with Confuse Ray, leaving the little bird somewhat woozy, so that when A orders a peck, it instead whizzes right past Watchog and slams face first into the gym wall. Looking almost pitying now, Lenora comments that A may be charismatic, but he's evidently not much of a battler, so if he really cares about his Pokemon's well-being like he says, why not surrender now, and save them the suffering of a painful defeat? Gritting his teeth, A replies that he'll never surrender, because he has faith in his Pokemon, just like they have faith in his cause. A claim Rufflet proves true as its next attempted peck finds its mark, catching Watchog in the back of the head for what was meant to be a knockout blow. Unfortunately, in this A is not successful and so quietly apologizes to his imprisoned friend that he will have to hurt it twice, as he next orders a Sky Drop. However, like the first attempt, this is marred by confusion, seeing Rufflet instead thrust its claws at some hallucinated foe a foot to Watchog's left. This in turn allows Lenora to have her Pokemon use Thunderbolt again, with it seeming as though the Eaglet Pokemon cannot take much more of this, though on the bright side, this jolt is just what the flying type needs to snap out of its confusion. Seeing a chance to turn things around, A then cries for Rufflet to use Aerial Ace, to which his friend responds with a high-pitched trill as it dive bombs Watchog. In turn, Lenora calls for a Hyper Fang, with Watchog springing skyward, so as the two opposing battlers pass each other, they each deal a wound before continuing on their respective trajectories. Unfortunately, Rufflets is into the dirt, where it continues to lay even after Watchog has landed, resulting in A recalling his first catch with his thanks, as he next asks Baneri if it's ready to battle. Bounding down from the Boy King's shoulder, the noble normal type nods vigorously, then on A's call uses Jump Kick, demonstrating just how far its rehab has come, as he's able to flawlessly pull off the super effective move, striking Watchog in the face, and even knocking it out in one hit thanks to the metal nature of its prosthetic foot. And just like that, things are evened up as Lenora's next and final choice, Herdia, takes to the field. As it too is a normal type, A figures one Jump Kick should down it too, though such a theory is predicated upon the assumption Baneri can actually catch the dog, which in this case is easier said than done, as every time Baneri jumps, Herdia simply zips out of the way before retaliating with a crunch. As a result, things quickly begin to skew in the gym leader's favour once again, though tenacious as ever, Baneri does not give up. However, in the end, all the guts in the world cannot compete with the cruel reality of a body's limits, with it becoming clear that in spite of how far Baneri's grown alongside its best friend, all this jumping, especially while being weighed down by the metal foot, is draining on the rabbit Pokemon's stamina, something Lenora can see and attempts to capitalize on as she calls for a Giga Impact. At once, a purple aura begins forming around the loyal dog Pokemon, while orange streams of energy swirl around the aura, making it abundantly clear that this is a finishing blow. Looking down at his partner, A can tell that another jump kick is out of the question, and so seeking its opinion as an equal, asks if it's got the energy for a techno kick instead. Nodding resolutely in a showing of the warrior spirit it gained from Nat, Baneri then takes its stance, ready to swing a roundhouse kick as Herdia bursts towards it. Though, something about this is different, as when the veil of electricity surrounds Baneri's foot, it is not the usual yellow generated by the shock drive, but instead a bright blue. However, this is not the only thing in the gym shining blue, as the Darkstone has suddenly taken on a faint bluish glow of its own, the likes of which Lenora has never seen. In a tone of scholarly wonder, laced with just the slightest note of horror at what the stone responding to A and his Pokemon could mean, the gym leader demands to know how the boy is doing this, though here A has no words for her, instead speaking to Baneri, as with a cry that carries the entirety of his faith in his ideals, he yells, "Now!" In a showing of the perfect trust and synchronicity between trainer and Pokemon, Baneri does not hesitate for even a second, swinging its crackling blue foot right at Herdia. For a moment, everyone assembled can almost swear they hear the roaring of a dragon in the whoosh of Baneri's leg, though this is silenced by the massive crack that rings out as Techno Kick blows the charging dog right out of Giga Impact, while at the exact same second, the Darkstone discharges, shattering all the light bulbs and frying all the electronics in the room. As a result, the gym is left in pitch darkness for a second as the backup generator kicks in, though when it does, casting a low light over the battlefield, no one is surprised to see Herdia unable to battle. Smiling broadly, A rushes to embrace his best friend, who leaps into his arms before slumping forward, clearly spent after whatever just happened. Patting its back softly, A urges Baneri to rest up, since it deserves it. While proving herself a woman of her word, Lenora tells him to take the stone and badge, some of that residual terror in her tone as she adds that she sees now. He truly is fated to leave a mark on Unova. She just hopes that whatever museum collects his artifacts will be able to speak of the hero he claims to be, not the monster he might become. Not needing Electron morality from an anointed oppressor, A wordlessly claims his prize, pocketing the stone and badge before bounding up the stairs, eager to return to the car, and more importantly the safe house so that he and his friends can rest. However, before he can do so, there is one more impediment he must face, as when he reaches the museum lobby, he comes face to face with a boy from Looker's video, the one who battled Alder, and as the pair's eyes meet, they both utter the same word in matching tones of mutual dislike. You!